name is Stephen Barton. I'm one of the composers of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And today we are going to be talking to some of the people who were involved in making the score and the people who were integral to the sound of the soundtrack and how great it sounds. So we're honored to be joined today by Everton Nelson, who was our orchestra leader and a violinist on the soundtrack. Everton, thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
So growing up, did you come from a musical family? What was your first experiences of growing up, and how did you gravitate towards the violin?
My mom enjoyed singing and played the piano a little bit. My father didn't play, but he was a massive jazz fan.
Huh.
And I grew up in a pub.
No ways.
Yeah. So essentially, you know, the jukebox would be playing Motown, you know, all that kind of era stuff. So music was always around, but my junior school that I went to, I was given an oral test, got the highest mark, and they said, "Do you want to play the violin?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll give it a go." And the county that I lived in, there was a lot of stuff musically happening. So they had a Saturday music school, they had recorder groups, you know, sort of junior stuff, which then, you know, graduated to the senior youth orchestra. And also the Earl of Shrewsbury sold his country pile to the council for £1, and they turned it into a residential place where you could go and do music, art or drama. So whenever we had concerts, we would go there for the week or for weekends, and it was amazing. This big country house, played football, common room, chamber music, you know, sectional rehearsals, etc., etc. It still exists now, actually.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Many people watching might not know what a leader does. They might know what a leader does in the concert hall, but they might not know what they do in a session. So what does that job really involve when you're doing session recording?
Gosh, you're sort of wearing several hats. So obviously there's the artistic side of making sure everyone's on the same page. You're liaising a lot with the director and the composer and the orchestrator, offering up ideas to change the orchestration slightly, kind of producing a little bit, and also time management, because time is money. So you have to make sure that, you know, we're delivering on time and on budget.
So you've played some incredible live shows in your career, massive stadium-sized audiences, up to like 60,000 people. Is it a different kind of discipline in terms of, you know, kind of what you're doing, or is it really very similar but just a different environment?
I think it's a mixture of both. Obviously, with a concert or, you know, a live performance, you will have rehearsed, and you get that one shot, essentially the show. Whereas with the session world, you generally don't get the music beforehand. You're sight reading. And if it's not quite right, you can just drop in. You can have another go. So the approach is, you still have to be on your chops, and, you know, but there is the flexibility to be able to kind of zone in on a particular section or a piece, and work from it from that way.
So I think lots of people wouldn't necessarily know things they hear on a film soundtrack. Most people are literally sight reading pretty much. They've seen it 10 minutes before at the most. Someone's doing grade 5 violin or something like that. The sight reading is often something that terrifies people. But
you've taken me right back.
But you literally do it professionally now, pretty much as a, you know, with a microphone shoved right there. Was that something you developed, or something, you know, when you were first doing sessions? Was that something that was ever on your mind, or was that sort of something you do really?
Well, I think, you know, from my teacher and the teachings I had from college, it was always drummed into you, you know, when you do the exam, you know, everyone thought of the sight reading as being a sort of a second thought. Oh, don't concentrate on that. Concentrate on the pieces, and that will. But then, of course, you get to do the exam, and it's like, so you have to then, you know, you go back to your teacher and they say, well, how was the exam? And you say, well, you know, the pieces went really well, the oral test was fine, but the sight reading. So it became something that it was very much drummed into me, and a lot of my, you know, friends, that it's something that you can't just put aside. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
And when I came into the business, it was something that I knew it's a big part of what we do.
As a session musician, you play on a huge amount of sessions on a hugely diverse array of music. What are the standouts that have been for you over the years?
Wow, that's quite the question.
And there's obviously huge numbers of things as well in terms of so.
I mean, there are several. One being Stevie Wonder. So he's the reason why I became a musician, and I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd ever get to meet him, let alone work with him. The album hasn't actually been released yet, but to spend 2 days in the studio with him was just incredible.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell,
Sure,
did a live album with her, and Vince Mendoza did the arrangements.
Was that the Both Sides Now album?
Yeah.
But is that Vince Mendoza, the arrangement of that song in particular, with all those moving string lines?
Exactly.
Funnily enough, there was actually a track on Jedi Survivor that was very much sort of actually one of the arrangements. The Tatran track was sort of inspired by Vince Mendoza arrangements. Right. So when you play on those sorts of things, is it very much the sort of similar kind of thing? You're seeing charts that are kind of well laid out, or is there stuff where it's like quite more free form? Does it vary in terms of the kind of what you're seeing on the page in front of you?
It doesn't vary too much because obviously it's generally a large orchestra, whereas if you're doing something solo or it's a small ensemble and you're maybe sort of workshopping things, then it can be a bit more flexible. But yeah, and I'm trying to think of some other examples of standout stuff. Black Panther was quite an unassuming soundtrack when we were recording it, and it was Ludwig's first time recording here in England at Abbey Road. Amy Winehouse, Back to Black album.
The violin as an instrument is quite a physical instrument. As someone who's playing music for sometimes 6 to 9 hours a day, like in session work, you have to sort of look after yourself physically. The amount that you're playing, how does that factor into it?
Yeah, I mean, as you get older, it sort of tells on your body, because in the studio, you've got obviously lots of mics, and, when you're performing, you can move around freely, and that's all fine. But when you've got a large number of people in a studio, you have to kind of channel your movement, because obviously with everybody moving, it creates a sort of, a frisson of sound, which generally the engineer doesn't want to pick up. So you have to channel it, you have to keep very still and channel everything through. So that can have, a toll on your body. So yes, like a professional athlete, warm up, stretch. I go to a physio, prevention better than cure. And try and keep active when I'm not in the studio. So I play tennis, I've got a rowing machine at home, and do all those kind of things just to keep active, so that it kind of counterbalances sitting and being very, very still.
What would be your advice for young players looking to get started in recording for film and television?
Well, I think sight reading, obviously, is very important, and listening to lots of different styles of music, so that if a composer or an arranger or a director said, I want something in the style of, then, you can draw upon a recording of a 50s song or a 40s black and white film or whatever it is, R&B or pop song, country, whatever it is. So be open, don't dismiss. Some of the most unassuming sessions can turn out to be the biggest. Be prepared for the unexpected. Be punctual. Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Everton, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.